أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانهر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. Thank you, brothers, for reciting such a beautiful selection from Mirani's Mercia. By echoing the eternal glory of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his companions, Miranis himself has not only become peerless but also timeless. As we know, because of COVID-19, the organizers have moved this gathering online. However, the large number of participants in this majlis online testifies that the age of social distancing has not dampened our fervor for Azadari. Though it's not easy to speak without an eye contact, it is just a stopgap adaptation, and again our majalis will be held in person as soon as the situation permits to do so, inshallah. Great people are usually judged in the context of a span of time that is much greater than their own lives. The judgment of their contemporaries can never decide their worth as a force in human history. Instead, it is their power to exert influence beyond their lifespan, and in that respect, Imam Hussain and his companions have no parallel. The life in man is capable of rising beyond its plateau. The heroes among us always seem to swim upstream against the flow of biological impulses, against the force of survival stimuli. Many great men in human history have renounced their right to this life so that some higher cause might prevail. But no one comes close to Imam Hussain and his companions. Judged by worldly standards, giving up one's life or having one's thirsty body slashed to death by swords and spears do not seem an attractive bargain, do they? And yet these men of truth acted with the fire of their soul, and by giving away their life earned eternal glory that stands tallest amidst those who sacrificed themselves for the consummation of a noble purpose. There is no single event in the annals of history that has shaped human beliefs, conduct, and truth like Karbala has. Almost 1400 years on, Karbala continues to mesmerize and inspire people around the world. The organizer of this majlis has desired that we discuss the philosophy of Karbala in our everyday life. If we happen to meet again, so vast is Karbala that we can talk about so many other aspects of Karbala, such as human lessons of Karbala, Karbala in literature, or so on. For now, it is the philosophy of Karbala and our everyday conduct. What was the philosophy of Imam Hussein's martyrdom? Now, the philosophy behind Imam Hussein's martyrdom has been the subject of mammoth intellectual and religious inquiry. People have researched, asked, and questioned, was this martyrdom political in nature or was it spiritual? Was it that God decreed this tragedy on Imam Hussain and his companions so that they could be given a more exalted status in heaven, and because God loved them so dearly, they were called to him in this manner? Was the Karbala episode merely a personal spiritual movement rather than a more embracing universal one? Was Imam Hussain martyred so that others could benefit in the hereafter from the rewards for merely mourning his martyrdom? These and many other facets of this overwhelming sacrifice have been discussed for centuries as minds much sharper, tongues more eloquent, and intellects more informed than ours have attempted to decipher the philosophy of Karbala. Some of the most pertinent aspects of Karbala's philosophy highlighted by them are: 1. Karbala is the culmination of Zibh-e-Azim as promised in the Quran when it says, "Wa tarakna min al-akhirin." 2. Karbala is the acme of the test of human character, an unequaled instance of suffering when one was tested in every imaginable hue of pain and grief, squeezed into a horrifying chamber of time. 3. Karbala is Imam Hussein's great protest against tyranny, coercion, imperialism, and injustice. A dauntless stand for human rights, equity, and civil liberties. Of course, Karbala is all of this. To me, the essence of Karbala's philosophy for our conduct is that it removes duplicity from one's life. It tells you that you always have the freedom of choice. It teaches you the unmistakable distinction between right and wrong. Post-Karbala, it is right as well as wrong mentality is dead for anyone who has a conscience. Karbala has been my compass throughout life to identify the true north of no. Yes, Karbala empowers us to say no. No to fear, no to insecurity, no to injustice, no to greed, no to evil, and no to all that undermines the dignity of being human. Khwaja Ajmer puts it beautifully when he says, "Haqqa ke binai la ilaha ast Hussain." Or Iqbal again echoed the message beautifully when he says, "Bahre haq dar khak ko khun ghalti de ast, pas binai la ilah gardi de ast." The narrative of Karbala is powerful and unveils the most principled and most gallant of human virtue. It offers the ultimate blend of justice and spirituality, the synthesis of the noble warrior and divine saint, the painful tale of suffering and a poignant legend of faith. There is a transcendental timbre about this event, rising above sectarianism, religious differences, and territorial borders. Despite its immense political significance, there is no doubt that Karbala is a lot more than a principled political uprising. Look, according significance to the emotional power of an incident could implicitly keep the memories of that incident alive and in some ways pass on its political importance to the future generations. However, let's be clear. This type of approach would not advance any precise political interpretation. The drive to arrive at a direct political interpretation would be to make Imam Hussein's movement a model to be repeated. But then such an interpretation would not be unique in its nature and effect to offer practical and ethical direction in varying situations in different times, different places, and different contexts. So, how does Karbala manifest this philosophy? Simple. While Earth's gravitation pulls downwards, there is a pull that draws the life of man upwards. Karbala incarnates that pull. And in doing so, Karbala teaches us that individual action is primary to all human action. In the final analysis, it's all about you. It's all about me, the individual. Inaction or leaving it to someone else is not an excuse. Forces that improve or change society are unleashed by liberated individuals acting in isolation. It has happened throughout the history. We all have to pick our battles and fight them. Karbala is always there to guide us in our choices and to give us a direction to change the world for the better. Karbala's short span of a few days is an autobiography of all that is best in human spirit and character. Love, compassion, honor, dignity, sacrifice, courage, bravery, steadfastness, perseverance. Show me one noble trait in human life where Karbala does not hold an example for us. This helps us understand what Jesus meant when he said, "He that saveth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life shall keep it unto life eternal." No matter the price, the best among humanity are committed to their code of honor. Imam Hussein's famous words stand out this day, even today. Addressing the enemy, he said, "If you do not have religion, at least live free in your life in this world." Now, we all know Imam Ali described what the prayer or worship of a free man is. And here, his son is telling these people that even if religion has not percolated into your being, it has not permeated your heart, at least try and be a free man. You are born to be free. And in that sense, Imam Hussein's sacrifice transcends other political struggles throughout history, such as the tenacity of the Greeks of Sparta, Leonidas at the Battle of Thermopylae, the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II, and many others. Why? It is so because Karbala is a universal message that holds true for all humanity. It spins an unbreakable thread of courage to oppose tyranny wherever it exists and whatever its form. Karbala's note continues to resonate ever louder to remind us of the ephemera of tyrants and of tyranny. It is amazing how clear Imam Hussain was in his intent and foresight in choosing the dignity of freedom of choice over his life. Is there a better example than Karbala in human history, I ask you, of when Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard proclaims, "The tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins." Karbala is the story of valor and supreme sacrifice that embodies an unmistakable contradiction of radicalism, barbarism, and terrorism. It built an indestructible wall protecting you from all impulses that are meant to confuse your choice between right and wrong. That, sisters and brothers, is the philosophy of Karbala. Karbala clearly spells out that you can be either with truth or with untruth. You cannot be with both at the same time. That is the philosophy of Karbala. Karbala is a paradigm that compels us to summon courage to stand for truth, to privilege call for justice over the instinct of survival. Karbala, sisters and brothers, has the clarity and the power to transform your life whenever you allow it to, and you know why. That is because Karbala has the capacity to be your guide in any situation in life, anywhere. Not just philosophically, but in proposing action. It distills into concrete action in any situation. And that is because Imam Hussain and Karbala show that there is no predefined pattern that we must fit into. It is the way we choose to live through any situation that defines who we are. In Plato's Apology, which is a recollection of the speech Socrates gave at his trial after choosing death rather than exile from Athens or a commitment to silence, Socrates says, "An unexamined life is not worth living." We have all heard it. Imam Hussein's sermons throughout his passage to Karbala and on the day of Ashura elevate this thought to an even superior level of conducting one's life. Karbala presents the ultimate contrast of human beings who do not examine their lives and have valueless bestial existence, and people capable of examining their lives, forsaking life and riches in Yazeed's camp to embrace certain death on Imam Hussein's side. As we talk about self-examination, let there be no doubt that the caravan of Imam Hussain, despite being very few in numbers, set an eternal example of the noble choice presented by self-examination. The choice of preferring death over a life of ignominy, a life of dishonesty. Karbala manifests that we are responsible for the life we live, for the choices we make. How we respond or react to any situation is dependent on our own choice. A similar dilemma in Christianity faced the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas A. Becket, who refused to corrupt the religion in favor of the laws of the King of England, Henry II, for which Becket was executed. The French author Jean Anouilh wrote a play entitled Becket or the Honor of God that beautifully describes how the final choice was again between the honor of God over the power of man. Each of the instances we have mentioned has a powerful lesson for humanity. The Socratic tradition, for instance, represents a principled stance as Socrates chose death over compromise to corrupt the society. Beckett's sacrifice, on the other hand, signifies an unwavering pledge to God. But when we survey Karbala's martyrdom towers above all these instances in its scope and impact. It contained a philosophical, intellectual, moral, human, and political choice, as well as the unconditional surrender to God without parallel. As a keen student of human history, I find nothing that glorifies the beauty of being human better than Karbala does. I find nothing that glorifies the beauty of being human better than Karbala. After Karbala, we know that evil perishes, tyranny passes away, and justice and mercy always prevail. These were the ideals that inspired the democratic freedom struggles of the world, and also the Western Enlightenment, the Renaissance, and European humanism. So then, what is a life worth living? Everything has a purpose for its being, without which it is useless. And a life worth living is one in which we vigilantly examine our conformity with and our progress toward our purpose. In his will, which Imam Hussain left to his brother before leaving for Karbala, he says, "I have taken this stand not out of arrogance or pride, neither out of mischief or injustice. I have risen to seek reform in the community of my grandfather. I would like to bid good and forbid evil, and follow the tradition of my grandfather and my father Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam." With this will, the Imam had made his intention clear even before he left his home along with his small group of followers. And any unbiased reader of the tragedy of Karbala would find it astonishing how clear the Imam was in his intentions and foresight about spreading this message for the rescue of human soul. And in other words, the rescue of humanity itself. Centuries later, Martin Luther King echoed what Imam Hussain had conveyed when King said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Remember what we discussed? You are either with truth or with untruth. There is no middle ground here. From Medina to Mecca to Karbala, and then from Karbala to Kufa to Damascus, it was a caravan for humanity. To sum up our discussion, sisters and brothers, the 20th century philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called it mauvaise foi, bad faith, the habit that people have of deceiving themselves into thinking that they do not have the freedom to make choices for fear of the political consequences of making a choice. Karbala shows that there is no excuse to escape responsibility for being moral in all our choices, no matter how mundane or seemingly insignificant. When you feel that responsibility, there is no default choice. There always is a conscious choice between right and wrong, between good and bad. Of course, the course of time is absolutely irreversible and our portion of it cruelly limited. When our biological preservation becomes a halter around our necks as we live in bondage to those instincts, let's remind ourselves of Karbala to draw lessons from it. Karbala is the tempest that can shake to life any conscience which is numb. You only have to open the windows of your heart and intellect unto Karbala. Karbala is also an example of how powerful women can be. The most powerful person is a woman. When one flips through the pages of history, the daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Sayyida Zainab salamullah alayha, whose valor has held humanity in its thrall over the centuries that have since elapsed. What better example of a balanced revolution can there be? Does it not fall in line with the modern ideas of power to women? There is no other incident that I know which has so beautifully carried forward the mission by men and women alike as equal partners in struggle, suffering, and sacrifice. We cannot think of incomparable ladies of Karbala without being reminded of a little lady, a little flower. The 4-year-old daughter of Imam Hussain, Sakina, who is also called Sukaina or Ruqayya. Sakina, the girl whose tears have left a scar on the human psyche. Sakina had so much love for her father, Aba Abdullah. While narrating the happenings of the evening after the day of Ashura, Hamid ibn Muslim says, I saw a young girl running in the desert. I approached her and asked her, young girl, where are you going? She looked at me, and the moment she saw me, she became terrified. She cried, Ya Sheikh, are you also going to hurt me? I told her, you need not fear me, I am with you. She said, Ya Sheikh, can you take me to Najaf? I said, young lady, what do you want to do in Najaf? She said, I have heard from my aunt Zainab that we have my grandfather's grave in Najaf. Anyone who faces difficulty can go to his grave and my grandfather will protect them. I want to go and tell him that we are in great anguish right now. Can he protect us? Oh grandfather, come and help us. I said, young lady, Najaf is too far. I cannot take you to Najaf. She said, in that case, take me to the river of Furat. I said, that I can do. I took her to Furat. The moment she saw the body of her uncle Abul Fazl, she threw herself on his body and said, Ya Ammi, I wish you could see how painful our life has become after you. Throughout the evening of Ashura, the whole time during the journey to Kufa from Karbala and all the way from Kufa to Damascus, Sakina would be hit and she would call Amma Zainab, Aina Walidi al Hussain. My aunt Zainab, where is my father Abu Abdullah? Why would he let these people hurt me? He always looked after me. Zainab would comfort her, tell her, Sakina, your father has gone on a long journey. Inshallah, one day you will be reunited with him. One night, Sakina wakes up in Damascus. She starts crying, oh, Aunt Zainab, where is my father Hussain? Her wailing touches every heart around, and then the whole camp starts crying with her. The wails reach the palace of Yazeed. He wakes up and asks, what is the matter? Why are they crying? He is told that it is the little daughter of Hussain who is inconsolable. What does she want? Yazeed asks. He is told she is asking for her father. He said, then take the head of her father to her. They brought the head of Abi Abdullah to her on a tray or in a pan. Initially, when Sakina saw the tray, she thought there was food in the tray. She cried out, Amma Zainab, I don't want food, I want my father, Abi Abdullah. Zainab said, my little child, remove the cover from the tray. Sakina removed the cover and she saw the head of her father Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. She threw herself on the head crying, Aiva Abata, Aiva Hussaina. This is your daughter Sakina. O father, where have you gone? O father, why is your head severed from your body? She continues to cry, Aiva Abata, Aiva Hussaina. O father, we cherish your memory and make it live on. O father, I am tired and my strength has faded from suffering and from holding all these tears in like spades. I hate what the world has done to us since you left us. O father, I have faced every nightmare a child would fear. Through every sorrow and every pain, I longed for your love. I called your name. But my heart splits when people love my tears and pain. O Father, Shimmer's hand has left its marks forever on my cheeks. Left wishing for that moment for so long, Sakina cried all the tears she had pined to shed. And then the girl became quiet as if she had found a moment of peace. In the harrowing stillness of the prison, Imam Sajjad rose and turned to Sayyida Zainab. He said, please remove my sister from the head of my father Abu Abdullah. O Amma Zainab, she has now gone to my father Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. History tells us that when the caravan of Imam Hussain was freed, they first went to Karbala. Upon reaching Karbala, Sayyida Zainab came to the grave of her brother Hussain. She cried for her brother. She also apologized when someone asked her, Zainab, why are you apologizing? She said, my brother told me to look after his little daughter Sakina, but I lost her in the dungeon of Damashq. Ya Aba Abdullah, I had to bury your treasured daughter there. O brother, I had to leave the solace of your heart resting alone in Sham. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'oon. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'oon. Matam Hussain.